Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here.
Hi, welcome back, everyone, to our next episode of the ImPerfect Podcast.
Yes, welcome back. So, Mom, I wanted to start off today. I have a little joke for you.
Okay.
As if you've never heard it before. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange who?
Orange, you glad I didn't say banana?
As if that's not the oldest joke ever.
Mm-hmm.
My actual preference, well, anything would be this one, but my preference would be your homemade knock knock joke from when you were about, I don't know, I'm going to say 3 years old.
Yeah, it's one of those jokes that I'll probably never live down because Mom brings it up time and time again. It was a knock knock joke when I was younger, and it was knock knock, who's there? Bag who? Bag of chips. I thought I was so funny at what? How old was I?
I don't know, 3 or 4, but obviously the joke wasn't funny, but the funny part was watching your anticipation to spit out the punchline and then laugh hysterically as you bent over and over and this over exaggerated laughter and hitting your leg, your knee. And that was the actual funny part of the joke. It was pretty cute, actually.
Yeah, and now we still laugh to this day because of my reaction to that joke, not even the actual joke.
Yeah.
So we've all heard the expression that laughter is the best medicine, but Mom and I were talking and we decided that we're going to look into the other side of humor today and jokes that could be doing more harm than good without us even really thinking about it.
Yeah. Just in talking amongst ourselves, we have shared with each other how jokes have impacted our lives at different times. And usually when we think about humor and jokes, we think of happiness and positivity. One of my favorite types of comedy is slapstick, actually. Stuff like Jim Carrey and the Three Stooges, where somebody bends over and gets hit by the board goes past their head, and when they get back up,
And I think
hits them.
for my age group, I think of the Wipeout game. That was something, I don't know, was played Saturday morning, something you'd watch with your father and go, haha, look at them bounce off that ball and never make it through the obstacle course.
And again, get hit in the head when they stand up and think they've finally gotten it. Jim Carrey is known as a slapstick comedian as well. He's one of my favorites. It's just, when you say Jim Carrey, I think of certain images, I'm sure we all do, that pop into your head of different shows he's been on. But there's 2 that come to mind with him. Actually, there's 3. One would be his character from Dumb and Dumber. That was hilarious in my opinion. Not everybody shares the same opinion. Also, I don't know if the scene was that he was in court or what. He had tape all wrapped up over his face and it was up his nose. It just so hilarious to me. And another one, maybe it was a court scene and he was so frustrated and he's just like, it's actually a gif. Actually, both the tape one and this one are gifs. And to me, even just to think about that makes me smile.
Yeah, so in the terms of like Jim Carrey or the Three Stooges, like in situations like for me, it's more prominent with the Three Stooges because you boink the head and then they turn around and they boink someone else's head and you're laughing. But the irony of the situation is that we're actually laughing at someone else's demise when you look at it that way. It's funny because we're laughing it off, look at them getting hurt, but we're laughing at their demise, even though it's acting, but we're just saying.
In a stage situation, it's funny to watch, but I'm sure I don't stand alone when I say, you're in the kitchen and you pull something out of this oven and next thing you know, you hit your hand or it's too hot and you drop the pan and everything goes on the floor and you're thinking, great. And someone inevitably comes along and says, what'd you do that for? Something like that, that's not quite as funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
after preparing for today's episode, it is strange to sit back and look at all of the ways that we actually use humor. It's often used inappropriately and sometimes as a cover for other things in our lives that we're trying to, it's kind of like a look over here, don't look over there kind of situation.
Hmm. Yeah, I even when you were younger, and I know you were self-conscious about your ears,
Hmm.
and we had a lot of discussions. Kids can often be quite cruel, and I had to help Kennedy figure out a way to get over this insecurity that she had, that kids, of course, just zoned in on. And I said, well, after discussing with her what's going on and what are they saying exactly,
I
and
just wanted to cut you off there just to give a bit of background because for people who don't know me,
right,
when she
yeah.
says self-conscious about my ears, I mean, I'm gonna just say my ears were quite large. They still are larger than most, but I've since had a surgery to try to correct some of that. It's nothing wrong with my ears. It's just how I was born with them. And so, like Mom was saying, I was bullied in school for this. And so I'll let you continue the story, Mom.
Yeah, so you can't very well hide them. And, I knew we were anticipating a surgery coming on later in her life, but what were we going to do for now, while kids were making jokes at her expense. So I said, well, if they're laughing at your ears, right? And, I was upset. She said, yeah. And I said, what about if you turn the tables on them and somehow you could make them realize that you were laughing at your ears, and then suddenly for a bully that becomes not such a fun game anymore.
Yeah.
So
the
we just
situation the situation kind of becomes self-deprecating, so it creates like comedic relief, but it kind of gave me power in that situation again, but it also in different situations can kind of be a cover of, oh well, I can laugh about myself so you don't have to, and it can eliminate you feeling worse about yourself because of someone else making jokes about you.
right. So what we had come up with for her at the time was when someone would make an ear joke to her, her response, instead of getting upset or running away, would be, what, like,
Because my ears are so big.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so actually I think that was a pretty useful technique for you, was it not?
Mhm. No, it totally eliminated the bullying. But yeah, just like I was saying, it becomes self-deprecating and in different situations, not just in that particular situation. Some people will do that on purpose so that others can see that if they can make fun of themselves, well then you
Hmm.
can't make fun of me. It's not going to break me down.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole concept of Seinfeld, really. And what's Seinfeld about, or Friends about, is them presenting scenes that we find humorous because we see, the resonance in our own experience, in our own
It's
life. So
relatable. It's relatable.
yeah, it certainly is. And so again, and look how popular it was, and how long it was on, and now we're watching reruns of it. So yeah,
Hmm.
that can be an actual, you know, comic relief for us watching. But the whole concept of self-deprecating humor, like I've done it, you ate something that you shouldn't have ate, maybe you're trying to watch your weight, and then you make a joke about it to kind of cover the shame, I guess, really is where it's at. So, you'd say, instead of saying, yeah, I ate the whole bag of chips, you turn it into some kind of a joke, like, I ate them because, my kids just left them there and they had to be eaten, we
Right.
don't throw food out, haha.
Right. Or
And
you're looking in
then
the mirror and you turn around and you go, "Oh, where'd this extra roll come from? Ha ha."
yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
you're trying to make yourself feel better about it as well as everyone else in the room knows like you acknowledged it, but at the same time you're making fun of yourself. So,
Yeah, I think maybe to do that is to stop somebody else from doing it for you,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, so this can also be known as satire because we are criticizing human flaws that others can understand or relate to. So, a good example of that would be Saturday Night Live. So, where they imitate celebrities and they put on a show, people can relate to that because, oh my gosh, that so much looks like so and so, or they're acting so well like so and so. So, it becomes very relatable.
Yeah, it always amazed me how Saturday Night Live could replicate someone's look or their voice. There's never a question about who they're trying to be. I mean, I know they have professional, people running the scene there and doing makeup, but phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah. And this can also get political too, but that's beyond the point. So another way that one can present their humor is how they deliver their jokes. So have you ever watched a comedian that doesn't laugh at their own joke and it makes it extra funny? Because it can sometimes be monotone or there's neutrality in it. So people never really know where the punchline is. Where's the joke? When's it going to hit me?
Yeah, I have someone in my family like that, and it's 100% like the no expression on the face, like you don't even see it coming. So.
Yeah. So this is also known as dry humor too. So Mr. Bean would be a good example of that. Yeah, so sarcasm can sometimes be used in this sense too. So sarcasm can be presented in such a way to almost test the waters with people. So it's this perception of, I'm going to say this in a sarcastic tone and see how you react to it. So kids will sometimes do this too in different ways. So they'll hit someone, and then when they realize that they're being reprimanded for it, they'll go, "Oh, I was just joking," because they realize they're in trouble for it.
Yeah. Also, things like passive aggressive comments, backhanded comments, and hidden meanings can be used with a sarcastic tone, right? So you're never really sure if they're saying what they mean or if it's a joke, right?
Yeah.
And there's a level of protection there too for if someone's intent is to bully, they can always follow it up with just kidding, or gosh, can't you even take a joke, and even sometimes publicly shame you. Just calm down. Wow, you're so sensitive. Yeah.
So, and this dynamic can happen in many different settings, like school and the workplace, within family. Like, I think that's probably where it happens the most, to be honest.
Yeah.
And in this dynamic, a person just slowly chips away at the other person and makes them feel powerless with sarcastic or funny insults, and they can just write it off with, like Mom was saying, "Oh, I was just joking," but meanwhile you've said their hair looks terrible or whatever it is.
Right. And then at times it can become the kids' normal, if there's kids in the home and they see this dynamic going on. So not always a great idea.
Yeah. So sarcasm is also a type of humor that requires a tone of voice, body language, and other like nonverbal cues. So this is oftentimes why sarcasm doesn't translate well through text message and if you're not including emojis, then even more so. How are you supposed to take this message? It just isn't perceived well because you need that body language, you need that tone of voice. So it also stands to question if like sarcasm is saying, "Oh gosh, you whatever." It just begs to question if these people actually mean what they're saying or if they're meaning it with malintent.
Another thing about humor is it can be pretty subjective. What I find funny might not be what you find funny. Some people like dark humor, some people like slapstick. There's all different kinds of humor that we came across, even things we were very familiar with, but we didn't know what the particular name was for them, like dark humor, blue humor, things like Family Guy, which deals with risque topics and off-color jokes, that sort of thing can be labeled as blue humor. And I didn't even know there was a term like that.
Yeah, and it also there can be situations where, like you were saying, something that's funny to you may not be funny to me. I think of my boyfriend in situations. "Oh, look at this funny TikTok video about mechanics." I don't know what you're getting at. So it's also about your background and what your interests are, not just about what you might find ridiculous in one situation or not.
Yeah, I guess if we look at that, and your history really is a big part of what you find funny and what you don't find funny. I mean, some is nature and some I think is probably nurture as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just as a last point, we also wanted to bring attention to the fact that humor can sometimes also be used as a decoy or a mask to avoid uncomfortable or unbearable situations. And we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, too.
Like depression. I know a lot of people that use depression as not use depression, use humor as a way to smoke screen their own depression.
Yeah. And
Also to lift the mood,
yeah.
if they have other friends that are experiencing a low mood.
Yeah. So, as popularly said by Robin Williams, comedy can be a cathartic way to deal with personal trauma. So, um, as an example, like we mentioned before about when people are making jokes about their weight because they're uncomfortable with it, they make
Mhm.
jokes themselves because they're feeling down and out about it. And they use it as a cover and, like Mom was saying, like a smoke screen. So, oh, well, I can laugh it off. So it's not serious.
Yeah. Another way that we found that humor can be used, and in all the examples that we found, totally relatable. We just, again, hadn't really thought too
Hmm.
much about how and why people use humor. So, in our society, women are kind of known for being more in touch with their emotions. So that often leaves men with nowhere to put the same. I mean, we all have the same emotions,
Hmm.
but if women, it's okay to cry or it's okay to go out with your girlfriends and talk, but all guys can do is pat each other on the butt at,
Mm.
some sports game, that leaves a big gap there. So, uh, in our own lives, we've experienced that men often can use humor as a type of getting some of those emotions out that is a socially acceptable way to do it. We
Right.
found that across the board too in things that we were looking up for this show.
Yeah, and of course it's not limited to men, but we wanted to point out that it seems to be in our experience prominent in men because like Mom was saying, that where's the outlet? If
Mm.
society's putting this pressure about you're supposed to be strong about it, well, the emotion is still there. So how am I going to deal with it? Well, I'm going to make a joke about it and make everyone
Mhm.
else laugh about it, and then it's not a serious situation.
Right. So we understand the irony in today's episode. Here we are talking about humor and joking, and the episode actually ended up being somewhat of a downer because of the particular topics that we handled, and especially the last few.
Yeah, and we just felt it was important to bring attention to this because it's something we were talking about in our personal lives and things we noticed. And then we headed down this rabbit hole and we were like, oh my gosh, yeah, like the Three Stooges, like they're totally making fun of someone getting beat up on television, even though it's acting.
Right.
So it was just something that kind of piqued our interest. So we hope that something might have piqued your interest as well, and just makes you question your interactions with other people. So now I'm going to be like, someone says a joke to me, and I'll be like, was that sarcastic? Were
Are
you
you
saying
making
it
fun
from?
of me?
Yeah. So we did want to lighten the mood a bit because, like Mom was saying, it is kind of a downer on humor for however we managed to do that. So we just have a couple jokes that we wanted to say. So I'll start off one. Did you hear the one about the guy whose left side was cut off? He's all right now. You go ahead.
How about the cheese factory that exploded recently in France? There was debris everywhere.
Debris. And a termite walks into a bar and says, "So is the bartender here?" Anyway,
Boom, boom.
yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for tuning in for another episode. Like we said, we hope that something piqued your interest or might just make you go, every once in a while. It definitely made us question and learn a lot. So, yeah, we'll see you next episode on Monday.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.